just after delivering that medium-term budget policy statement. Minister, thanks indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
It certainly was trying times. We're in a difficult period at the moment. So you look at those revised growth figures, 1.3 to 0.7. It must have been a tough task. But when you look at one number, Minister, that is probably very concerning, it's that revenue shortfall, 50.8 billion rand, 2017-2018. That certainly is a telling figure of where we are going and what we need to do. Indeed.
The slow growth in the economy is and should be a matter of concern for all of us. And I think the major response to the revenue shortfall should be, let's grow the economy, because the only way you are going to be able to recover 50.8 billion rand is not by cutting expenditure or raising taxes. It is by addressing the structural reforms in the economy, resolving the uncertainties surrounding state-owned companies, the telecommunications spectrum allocation and broadband issues, as well as resolving the mining issues, implementing some of the fiscal issues, including the reform of the procurement programs of government, and ensuring that we spend more time, we spend more focus on driving localization, eliminating inefficiencies and wastages in that regard, and improving confidence in state-owned companies.
You say that the best way to get that figure sorted out is to actually inspire confidence. Absolutely. And get the economy growing. But I mean, it's a bit of a conundrum, because how do you inspire confidence when you have a budget deficit going up to 4.3%, when you have a wage bill growing faster than the budget? It seems as though the outcomes or perceived outcomes is not consistent with the consolidation efforts.
It's not going to be an easy process. It's going to require that we take a medium-term outlook approach ourselves, because there's absolutely no way within 1 year that you can recoup 50.8 billion rand. You need to work very strongly. I think we have already taken major steps. If you look at the introduction of new boards at SAA and SABC, and the decisions we've taken around SAA, appointing a new CEO, a new CFO, a chief restructuring officer, and announcing that we are on course to engage a strategic equity partner. All of those steps are going to unlock private sector investment. They are going to boost the confidence that we require for other state-owned companies, including Eskom. I mean, at Eskom, the government has mandated National Treasury to assist the Department of Public Enterprises to deal with the financial leadership and governance challenges at Eskom. We need to have a new board at Eskom before the end of the year. We need to implement the structural reforms we announced in July in the confidence-boosting measures. We are working very well with the CEO's initiative already on the Youth Employment Service Scheme, the SME Fund, and all of those. And we have been interacting with them regularly. They've even given us ideas about how the better to transform and more effectively to transform SOEs. So that will assist us in raising levels of confidence.
And the transformation of governance at SOEs is probably a credit positive. But when you take the other figures back to the credit rating agencies and you look at the growth, which is 0.7, again, that revenue shortfall and the budget deficit, how do you think ratings agencies are going to react to some of these figures?
I don't want to preempt them. I don't want to play a guessing game with them. Obviously, they look at a number of variables when they decide about the country's credit rating. We do understand that with two of them, they have attached a negative outlook towards South Africa. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to take an adverse decision with regard to our credit rating. It just means that we need to take certain steps which are going to inspire confidence among them, that we are committed to maintaining the fiscal framework, we are committed to maintaining the expenditure ceiling, we are committed to continuing the drive against corruption, to reforming state-owned companies, implementing microeconomic reforms that are going to eventually grow the economy. Because the critical question which they will ask is that in the environment where the revenues have contracted and you have almost utilized a great deal of your expenditure levers in implementing the fiscal consolidation path, what more can you do in order to raise revenues? And so that's why I was saying in the statement that ultimately what we need to do is to grow the economy. We need to find new revenue sources which are going to turn our fortunes around and grow the economy.
On nuclear, Minister, you've mentioned or reiterated the fact that moves on the nuclear build will only go in accordance to the pace of affordability. But if you look at some of these figures in terms of our struggling economy going forward, it doesn't look like we will afford nuclear in the near future, does it?
Look, nuclear remains part of the energy mix. At one point, I mean, at the present moment, Eskom has about 5,700 megawatts of excess electricity. That is 900 megawatts bigger than the biggest power station in South Africa, which is Medupi, which, when it is fully commissioned, it will be operating at 4,800. And Medupi is the fourth largest power station in the world. So we have excess electricity at the present moment because the economy is growing slowly, the demand is low, there aren't big intensive users that are taking up the electricity that is being generated on a daily basis by Eskom. Now, because of that, because of the slow growth in the economy, we need to keep on emphasizing that we're not going to take decisions which are going to adversely affect the economy. That's why the important point that the President made in May, on the 31st of May this year, and that I have also been repeating, is not only the pace and scale that the fiscus can afford, but the pace and scale that the economy, that the country can afford. So at what point we will decide that we now are ready, that there is such a high demand and uptake of electricity that we need baseload electricity of a renewable energy form in order to meet the needs of the economy and the country, I think will depend on on how quickly can we get the economy to grow at 3 or 5% going forward.
And it's that economic growth that has a direct impact on jobs, Minister. At 0.7% projected, that doesn't bring in good news for job creation. So where does that come from?
You know, we've got one of the highest unemployment rates of 27.7%, and particularly it affects young people. So we need to take decisions that are going to assist us to get young people working. That's why the CEO's initiative of getting 1 million young people into the Youth Employment Service Scheme over the next 3 years is such a critical intervention. And the SME fund that government is funding and the private sector is also funding are also critical because they are going to assist us to support many SMEs that employ people at local levels and that can get young people into employment. As it stands, the message that we are sending is that the fiscal framework and the economic outlook is tough, but people must not lose hope because there are concrete steps that we are taking. And the point I kept on emphasizing in the speech was that it's in our hands, that government must ensure that we stop complacency, we stop procrastination and dithering, we become decisive, we increase the pace and scale of structural reforms and SOE reforms. It's the only way to boost business confidence, to get investments going, to then increase consumer confidence and then get the economy shooting up at all levels.
Minister Malusi Gigaba, the Finance Minister, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
You're most welcome.
All right, let's get more reaction now. Abra Barbia at the steps of Parliament.
Devin, I must just let you know that it looks like the students have arrived to the gates of Parliament.